Hi Ananya. I just logged in a bit early. We'll wait for a few more people to join in and we'll begin. Hi Ankita. Hi Mehak. So I guess it's like 4 p.m. there. I'm joining in from India, so I'm from Pune. Hi Rima. Just a couple more minutes and I think we'll begin. So we have a lot to cover in one session. Please keep asking questions so that it is interactive, and I also know your feedback, and I also know if I have to elaborate on a certain topic. Hi Hima, hi Surbi. So nice to meet all of you. Hi Ambika. Right. Hi Anita. Okay, so we have quite a few people joined in, and it's already 4 there in Dubai and 5:30 here in India. So I think I'll begin, and they can always join in later. So I think I shared a short introductory video about myself a few days back. So I'm a general physician. I did my MBBS. I passed out in 2011, and since then I've been on a very different journey because I've trained in homeopathy, acupuncture, nutrition, even naturopathy a little bit. So basically, I look into holistic medicine. And over a period of so many years, I have kind of come to a point where I see a lot of women, and I have dealt with a lot of hormonal issues in women, and this has become like my favorite subject. So actually, one of my very close friends, Ankita, who is part of this Dubai group, she only suggested that, okay, why don't you talk a little bit about it, because a lot of women here do suffer from issues, and which is why I said, okay, this sounds great. um, so I myself had PCOD, and this was, I think, diagnosed when I was 25, and I had all the symptoms, like it was very obvious. So I had period gain, random hair growth in a lot of places. I had mood swings, my god, severe mood swings. So it was very typical PCOD symptoms. It was diagnosed, and I literally lived with it for many years, like from my puberty till 25, 26, till I got the senses that no, I need to change something, I need to fix this. And weirdly, through my 7 years of in medical education and then working for a couple of years also, it did not prepare me for dealing with this. So this was something which I had to learn by myself, and I kind of it was a journey that brought me here today. So 10 years down the line, now I can guide women better, because I have been through a lot of the things that they are going through today. So I think through my talk today, I want to spread this awareness of what menstrual health really is. So since hormonal issues in women is a very vast subject, for today I decided to talk on the evolution of hormonal issues. So I'm going to be talking about from puberty, so from when menses begin, periods begin, and how the hormonal imbalances go till the age of 30, 35, etc. And the reason why I chose this topic is because I would say 70% of women who come to me, say at the age of 30, they have their roots of hormonal imbalances right when they were 15. So this is something that I tell them when they tell me their story. I tell them, do you realize this, that you've been suffering from these symptoms for the past 15 years? So you've been having hormonal issues and you never did anything about it. And that's when they realize, yes, I was being oblivious to these things. So this is what I want to address today, because I think we have a mixed bag of women here. So there are women who are in their 20s to early 30s, and also late 30s and 40s who are having kids, who are girls. So this is going to address both younger as well as the older population. So I hope you guys enjoy the talk. So in the beginning, I want to explain a few terms, because I'm going to be using this quite often in the talk. So just to clarify some things, okay. So as women, we have two gender hormones. So we have male hormones as well as female hormones inside us. So the male hormones are it's the testosterone and androgen. They're called as androgens. And the female hormones, we'll be mainly talking about estrogen and progesterone. There are a few more like LH, FSH, not getting into those details, but mainly we'll be dealing with estrogen today. And we are going to see how the balance of these hormones lead to a lot of health issues. That is what we are going to look at. Now, if you see the anatomy of female reproductive system, we have two ovaries which connect to the uterus, which is in the center, and the uterus ends in the cervix and the vagina. So that's the female reproductive system. And the ovaries, they have the eggs, okay, which are required for conception. Now, a very interesting fact I'm going to state here is that the total number of eggs that you will ever use in your entire reproductive lifetime is present right at your birth, which is why the conception and pregnancy, especially for a girl child, becomes even more important. And the egg reserve that we call, that's the total number of eggs, is constant. It doesn't change. You're born with the total number of egg reserves. And once you hit puberty, once you start menstruating, every cycle you lose one egg from that egg reserve. And you will see why this is very important, and which is why one of the reasons they say that, as you age, your fertility drops because the egg reserve drops. I don't totally agree with that statement, but this is one of the explanations why. Because your egg reserve is fixed. So every month, if you're losing one egg, by the time you're 35, 40, the total number of eggs definitely is going to come down. I mean, that is kind of logical. Anyway, so the eggs are covered in a small, I would say, a tiny membrane, which is called as a follicle. And each cycle, after your menstruation is done, one follicle starts growing, becomes really big, and then it ovulates in the mid of your cycle. So say day 15 or day 16. And if that ovulation, the egg that is released, is not fertilized and there's no conception, there is a period, because the body realizes, oh, I'm not pregnant, so I'm going to just drop all the hormones and I'll have my period. And then the whole cycle begins in the next cycle. Now this is what happens. Now, the important thing to remember here is that in the first phase of your menstrual cycle, so from day 1 of your period up to ovulation, estrogen is the dominant hormone. And the second half of your cycle, that is from your ovulation to your period, progesterone is a dominant hormone. Okay. And the reason why is that because progesterone is a pregnancy hormone. So in case you do get pregnant, you need the progesterone to maintain that pregnancy. So that is what is needed. Now let's see what happens in puberty. So when a girl, say around 14 or 15, well, nowadays the age of puberty has come down to 12.5, the average. The interesting part is that appearance of periods, you're getting your first period, is actually the last stage of puberty. So puberty begins 2 to 3 years even before the menstruation begins, even before the period cycle begins. Now the first change that you notice in a girl is appearance of breasts, maybe underarm hair, hair around the vaginal area, uh, and maybe a bit of mood swings, a little bit of, maybe a depressive phase. It depends on every girl. A bit of weight gain. So these are the some kind of symptoms that you can see. And in that period of 2 to 3 years, the estrogen levels are consistently rising slowly, 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 slowly. And when it reaches above a certain level, the level is around 275 nanograms per milliliter, not going much into detail, but from zero it rises to that level, then the period starts coming. And this is what happens. So there are some signs right even before the period start, like during that 2 to 3 years of hormonal changes, that you can guess that something might be off. Okay, one of the sign is very early changes in breast. Now see, I do agree that on an average around the world the puberty age has come down, but is that a good thing? I'm not very sure. And obviously that girls who attain their first period by the age of 10 or 11, they definitely have more issues compared to girls who attain their period at around say 14 or 15, definitely. So early appearance of menses, so even before menses I would say early appearance of breasts, that is one of the signs that okay, something is really off. I would say appearance of breasts by the age of 8 or 9, that is also seen, or even earlier 7, not a great sign. Pain in the breast, see, breast enlargement is a process that might be a little uncomfortable. Okay, it's a discomfort, it is never painful. So painful growth of breast and sudden excessive growth of breast, these are the things that should kind of tick a radar somewhere that okay, something is really not right. Third is excessive depressive symptoms. Now research has shown that for girls who whose estrogen levels shoot up really quickly and really fast, they tend to be more depressed during the time of puberty, and they have more I would say risk taking symptoms or risk taking behaviors, like doing dangerous things, because it is a kind of way to come out of depression. So if you're seeing certain personality changes in your daughter which is very sudden, very severe, then I would say just look into the matter. Okay, I understand that puberty, a lot of things is normal, like having some mood swings, having tantrums, all these things are normal in puberty, but it's a very fine line to understand that something is really off. Now when the periods begin, yes, 2 to 3 cycles sometimes it takes to regularize the body, the system. I totally agree, but I have seen girls who have gone a year with irregular menstrual cycles, or the menstrual cycle can come for a few months, then not come for 6 months, and then again start coming for few months. These are all little signs that hormonally something is off and something needs to be done to correct this whole hormonal balance, right? I'll come first. I'm just trying to explain the different ways that hormonal imbalance can represent basically. Yeah, so these are the signs that something is off from puberty itself. Another sign which I am seeing quite frequently is spotting. So girls whose period have just begun, they end up spotting for many days. And if they go to a gynac, the gynac says this is very normal, it happens in puberty. It's fine, don't worry, it'll be okay. And then the next 2 years goes the same way. The girl is still spotting regularly. Some cycles period comes, some cycle period doesn't come, but the spotting is continuous. So these are signs that something is off and things need to be checked on. Now even in grown-ups, like even post adulthood, these are signs that your periods are not regular, your periods are delayed, your periods come very frequently, you're not ovulating every month. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in some time. getting lot of back pain, stomach pain, fever during periods or before periods, having excessive mood swings before periods, breast cysts before periods. These are things which are not normal. Don't normalize these things, because I know women who cannot survive 4 days of their period without taking painkiller tablets or without taking some anti-muscle, muscle relaxants, because they are so much in pain. The reason you have so much pain is that either you have an hormonal imbalance or you have an inflammatory reaction going on in your body. I'll come to that. But please do not normalize discomfort in periods. Periods are not meant to be painful. It's a very natural process. It should be like, going to the bathroom, going to the toilet, or eating food or digesting. That's how periods also should be. You should never realize that when you're getting your periods and when your periods are getting over. That's how it ideally should be. Now, when this happens for years together, and then after 10 years, they would come that I have or I have endometriosis, or I have thick endometrial lining, or I have PCOD, and all these symptoms will come. But if you actually ask them, they had signs of hormonal imbalance right in the beginning, right? So please do not ignore the small signs. That's what I mean to say. Now, I said something about ovulating every cycle. Now, naturally, all women, maybe 1 or 2 cycles a year, they might skip ovulation. But otherwise, every cycle they ovulate. They should ovulate if everything is fine. But women with PCOS and other hormonal issues, they do not ovulate every month. They might skip 1 month, they might skip 2 months and ovulate the third month. And in severe cases, they might not ovulate for a year together. And the reason they don't realize they don't ovulate is because they are still having their periods. So having regular periods every 28 days doesn't mean that you are ovulating every month. That is another big thing that you ladies need to remember. Ovulation is very different from having periods. Okay, so periods can happen even when you don't ovulate and your hormonal levels start dipping after some time. You can bleed, but that's not a period bleeding. It's an anovulatory bleeding which happens. Now, how do you check whether you have ovulated or not? That's a longer discussion and it has to be a different seminar. But just in short, I'll tell you there's something called as fertility awareness method, FAM, which is really good for judging your own fertility and to understand if you have ovulated. It uses very simple signs of your body, like your body temperature, the cervical mucus, the way the cervix feels, so these are the 3 main indicators that FAM uses to assess whether you have ovulated or not, and these are pretty accurate, like 99% it's accurate. Other than that, you can also use ovulation strips to check if you're ovulating or not. So that is also another way of double checking if you're ovulating every cycle. So as I said, the aim should be to ovulate every cycle, not that your periods are coming regularly. Okay, so both are important, but ovulation is more important. That's what I mean to say. And if you have early signs of PCOS, then you can easily know if you're skipping ovulation, very frequently, like 1 in 2 cycles or 1 in 3 cycles, you're skipping ovulation, which means that you are in the beginning stages of hormonal imbalances. So that, that needs to be checked. Is ovulation and rupture of egg the same? Yes, Shreya, it's the same. So basically, not rupture of the egg, it's rupture of the follicle. I said no, there's a light covering around the egg, which is called as a follicle, and that follicle ruptures, which causes the ovulation, right? So when that ovulation happens, physical changes that happen, which the FAM method, the fertility awareness method, uses to identify, and it's pretty accurate and it's really good, and I think every woman and every girl should be taught this in school. I don't know why they don't do this. Now, Shrishti had asked me that I have read somewhere that we should try our best to delay puberty as much as possible. See, Shrishti, I'm not talking about delaying puberty, because there are many factors that, lead to a certain puberty age. It's the readiness of the mind and the body of the child. Genetic factors are also important. So if you have had early, then you might have how are those factors that can be, contained? So now, what causes these hormonal imbalances, early puberty changes, and the imbalance, or you can say irregularities in the period? Now, the first important thing is stress. So a girl, especially during, if it attached with stress, okay, the hormonal, you can say, balance is totally out of whack. Now, what is the stress that a girl who is 14 to 15 or have? It can be stress from school, stress from parents in very, homes where there are a lot of fights. In fact, things which were not stressing them before might actually stress them at change of weather. There are a lot of things, like even having a boyfriend. Things are now, moving down scale with respect to age. So even those things are very, very important stress factor during puberty. And the only way to relieve it is to make sure that you give your kids a safe space to share their feelings, acknowledge what they are going through, and maybe talk to a therapist about it, and make it an open conversation at home, because it's not easy dealing with stress nowadays, especially in this day and age of social media. Now, what happens in stress is that your adrenaline level shoots up, your cortisol level shoots up, and so for it, the testosterone level goes up because the stress is going up, and then the whole hormonal, and if that stress is not corrected at the earliest, it leads to a whole cycle of, reaction. Yeah, stress. So homeopathy is one of very natural ways to deal with stress. So give it a thought as well if you guys have access to a good homeopath. Now the second thing that causes hormonal imbalance, which I cannot stress enough, is diet. Now in today's world, we are living in a world of fast food. Okay. Yeah, I'm back. I'm having some network issues, I think, so it's kind of getting cut again and again. Anyway, I hope it's okay now. I'm kind of closer to the window. Uh, yeah, so I was talking about diet, yes. So, diet is extremely important when it comes to hormonal balance, because we are eating a lot of fast food, okay, and this fast food has an impact on the receptors that are there for the hormones. So the estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, testosterone receptors, these are all affected by the kind of diet we are having. Okay, I'm not going much into detail because that itself is going to take a lot of time. But one major thing I'm going to mention here is dairy products or milk products. Now, milk products have a lot of hormones in them because breast milk naturally has got a lot of hormones. It has oxytocin, it has IGF-1, which is insulin like growth factor 1, it has got estrogen. These are the three main hormones which milk has, even naturally, without even injecting the cow or the buffalo with hormones. It would naturally have, because the baby calf needs those hormones. Even human breast milk has those hormones because babies need that hormones to grow. But we as adults or adolescent children do not need those hormones. But there is no way to escape it. It's not something that is added in milk. It's always there in milk. So that is one thing which I am going to recommend, that if you are seeing that your child is having hormonal imbalance, or you yourself are having hormonal imbalance, leave dairy products for a month and you will see the difference. I cannot even stress how important this is. Right? You will literally see the difference in your cycles, you will see the difference in your health, in your energy levels, in your digestion, in everything. I can guarantee you on that. So diet is one main thing. Third thing is exogenous exposure to estrogen. Now, there's something called as xenoestrogen, which is certain chemicals which mimic the effect of estrogen. And when you're exposed to xenoestrogens, your body reacts as if it's natural estrogen. So it will start producing, increasing the breast size, start producing more bleeding in the uterus, signs of estrogen excess basically. Now, what are these xenoestrogens? There is a whole list of xenoestrogens. You can Google it. Is XENO, xenoestrogen, ESTROGEN. So just Google the term, see the list. One of the major things that has xenoestrogen is plastics. Because they have a component called as PCBs and also polybisphenol A, which is BPA, which these are the two main components of plastic which has xenoestrogen. So if you're consuming things out of plastic packaging, microwave using plastic containers, then there is a lot of exposure to xenoestrogen. Other products, of going vegan meat and having soy milk, because dairy need so have soy milk and all of that, but soya has an estrogen. If you see the literature, ambiguous. There is no conclusive evidence that something, but in my experience and from what my patient, soy does a lot of damage. It's a very minor things that you can feel. Like suppose, let's say a woman products and then she is not tolerating soya well. So that is very important. So when I do a nutritional counseling, estrogen excess or estrogen deficient. So if there's somebody which is estrogen deficient, like for example that happens with menopausal women, they have low estrogen levels. Soya is actually very good for them because it is naturally boosting up their estrogen level. So if there's somebody who is menopausal, I tell them please consume soya products, like good organic soya products every day, because that will help balance out your. So it's a very fine balance, and you need to understand soy products. I would say avoid it if you think into it, right? Cause. Okay, a lot have asked me about menopause. Let me first finish this. Yeah, I'm back on. Sorry, ladies. Shrishti, about BPA. Shrishti, you can just Google about BPA. There's nothing much to know. Most plastics which are single time use, which has not been mentioned BPA free, are usually BPA, they have BPA. So one option of doing it is to just avoid using plastic products. I mean, use glass or ceramic or something else. I mean, anything else is fine. And especially when this happens around puberty, it's the effect is even more amplified. So that's the thing. Now the next thing that I want to talk about that causes weight gain. So it is a very vicious cycle. So when, especially during puberty, girls tend to gain a lot of weight, and this is the weight that they don't shed easily. And so if you have a girl who is 10 or 12, and you're seeing suddenly there is a sudden increase in the chubbiness and weight in certain areas, then please make sure that you change her diet. There's something in her diet that's not suiting her. That's the first sign. Second, make sure that they eat. Yeah. Second, you can make sure that they eat more healthy food, less processed food, more vegetables, more fruits. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I know there is it's actually quite an overcast here, which is why my 4G is also not working properly. I usually do live sessions from my clinic and it's pretty okay. So I'm really sorry for this. I hope you can hear me now. So I'm almost sitting on my balcony, hanging outside, just to make sure that the network is there. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. Uh, so weight gain is something that needs to be addressed, and this is why it happens is because if there's too much fat in the body, the fat also produces estrogen and testosterone, which causes hormonal imbalances in women. That's the first thing. Second thing, it causes insulin resistance, which means that it the amount of insulin that you need to metabolize a certain amount of sugar, it is much more. So your body will be producing more insulin, which will cause more testosterone production, and then the whole hormonal cascade begins. So I think weight loss is one of the ways that you can trigger the hormones to get back in shape. That is why for PCOS, weight loss is one of the major ways in which you can control it, and you can even reverse it. But it becomes a little tough when you're having hormonal imbalances and you're trying to lose weight. I mean, I understand. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach. There has to be weight loss, there has to be diet, there has to be exercise, there has to be medicines like homeopathy or naturopathy, or what I can say, herbal medicines, supplements. All these things help holistically for correcting the hormonal balance. So that's what I'm going to summarize it as. Have I missed anything? Yeah, so I think I've covered most of the hormonal causes for hormonal imbalance. So that is stress, diet, xenoestrogen exposure or exposure to synthetic, or you can say external estrogen mimicking substances, weight gain or obesity, and genetics. So after all this, there is obviously one reason of genetic which can happen. So you really don't know why sometimes hormonal imbalance happens. Everything would be checked and still the woman or the girl will be having some hormonal issues. So that is a genetic factor. So these are broadly the reasons why hormonal imbalance happens and how they can be corrected. Now I'm just going back to some of the questions. Now, a lot of people asked me about menopause. So I think, Shrishti, I answered your question about how to prevent early puberty is to make sure that the diet is correct, make sure there is not excess weight gain, make sure there is no exposure to xenoestrogen, soya products or dairy products, and make sure there is no stress or there is reduction in stress. So this is something that will help delay puberty if it is unnatural. If it is natural, then nothing really can be done. Ankita asked me, does different hormones in female lead to issues like anxiety, stress, mood swings? Yes, Ankita, I did talk about mood swings, especially before periods or during ovulation, which is another sign of hormonal imbalance. Thyroid in itself is a different subject, but I feel that those who have issues with estrogen progesterone balance, they end up having thyroid issues also eventually. It never begins as a thyroid problem, but it begins as an estrogen imbalance and then ends up with a thyroid problem, because all hormones are basically interconnected. Yeah, and definitely it has effect on your sugar levels, it has effect on your BP, because hormones are called as hormones because they affect every organ system of the body, including the brain, every hormone. So thyroid, estrogen, insulin, progesterone, testosterone, any chemical which is certified or labeled as a hormone will have an impact on your entire body. Yeah, so a little bit of the hormonal imbalance in any hormone will affect in your entire organ system, and everybody will have a different way of presentation. That is also another thing. Now, one more thing that I forgot to mention because of all these network issues is contraceptive pill induced PCOS. Now, this is one of the main causes of PCOS, and you will be surprised that you can actually find it in the literature that it is contraceptive pill induced PCOS. Now, what happens is, suppose, let's say at the age of 18 or 19, the girl goes to the gynec and says, okay, I'm not having regular periods, or I'm having only spotting, I'm not having any bleeding, I'm having acne, I'm having hair loss, I'm having this. The first thing the gynec is going to put that girl is oral contraceptive pills. And she will be taking that for 2 to 3 years easily. That's one thing. Second thing, women even voluntarily take it for preventing conception. That is second reason. I have seen women who have been on contraceptive pills for years together, like 5-10 years, and I'm like, how do you do this to your system? Now, what contraceptive pill does is it prevents the ovulation. So the follicle, when it grows, it has to rupture, right? So that the egg is released. Now this contraceptive pill, because of the hormones that are in it, it will stop the release of the egg. Now when that happens, that egg which is supposed to be released comes back into the ovary. and every cycle the eggs keep collecting in the ovary, and by the end of a year or 2 years or 3 years, there are so many eggs in the ovaries that it causes polycystic disease. So this is what is happening. You are in fact generating your own problem because of consuming contraceptive pills, which is given for treatment of the same problem. This is the problem I have with it. I don't know why. I honestly don't understand why gynacs do this. So, one thing, women, please stay away from contraceptive pills. You can use any other form of contraception. You can use condoms, you can use diaphragms, barrier methods, you can use even copper T, I would say, is safer than using a hormonal contraceptive because it totally messes up with your system like crazy, right? And right from the beginning, treat hormonal issues naturally rather than with hormones because, as I said, it's only aggravating the problem, right? So please remember this, contraceptive induced PCOS is a real thing. Somebody asked me about transitioning into a smooth menopause. So, okay, menopause is a big subject in itself because it's not very simple to, quickly say something. But I would say if you have maintained your reproductive health through your reproductive age by the time that you're having your cycles, your menopause will generally be smoother. That's the first thing. Second thing, homeopathy is lovely during menopause, so it can stop the frequent bleedings, heavy bleedings, mood swings, dryness of vagina, which is seen very frequently with menopause. So these symptoms can be easily controlled with homeopathy, and of course, a nutritious diet. Okay, so these are the three main things. Oh yeah, and exercise and yoga. So these are the 3-4 things that you can do for ensuring a smooth menopause. And the reason I talk today about evolution of hormonal balance is to understand that your smooth menopause actually begins at your puberty, like how smooth your puberty was and how smooth your cycles were during the past, during the 20-30 years. So to maintain a smooth menopause, your periods need to be smooth, and that will make sure that your menopause is smooth for sure. Yeah. Did I miss any question? What is the average age of menopause? Okay, so average age of menopause depends on genetics very heavily. Second thing, as I said, what is your egg reserve to begin with? Because if your eggs are over, then automatically you hit menopause. So women who go for IVF cycles, who in IVF cycles they sometimes induce 7 or 8 eggs in one cycle, so you're losing a lot of eggs at the same time, so these women tend to hit menopause much faster. Also it depends on how many kids you have, so if the more number of kids you have, the later you're going to have menopause. So if you have no kids, your menopause will tend to be earlier, basically because if you have 2 kids, for example, so that is basically 4 years in total that you have not ovulated, so that is automatically conserving your eggs. So the more number of kids you have, the menopause will be much later. The less number of kids you have, the menopause might be faster. Might be, I'm not saying it will be, because it depends again on your egg reserve. Symptoms of menopause. So menopause, as I said, it is different for different women. One of the symptoms is that the periods start getting delayed. So because at the end of your cycle, your number of eggs have gone down, or maybe they have even finished, so you don't ovulate. So every month there is no period. Maybe every 2 months there will be a period, every 3 months there will be a period. This is one way. Another way is somebody will have a lot of bleeding, like every 15 days. Yeah, I have seen women with hormonal issues during menopause with lot of bleeding. So that happens because of inflammation. Now that is a different thing altogether. I don't want to get into it, but please get that checked out if that is happening, right? Breast tenderness for 7 days before menstrual cycle, is it alarming? Kasturi, it's not alarming, but I have to tell you that it's not normal. It's not normal to have heavy breasts before periods. It means that you have an estrogen excess, and that has to be addressed. So yeah, please address it. Yeah. Ankita, have I missed any questions? Because I'm trying to go up and see. soya milk is good or no? Seema, so what I was saying about soya milk is that if you have breast issues, especially cystic breast before periods, if you are having signs of estrogen excess, now I am just describing in short some signs of estrogen excess. One, as I said, is tenderness of breasts before menstruation. Then second is continuous white vaginal discharge, or even transparent vaginal discharge, but it is continuous. See, some amount of discharge is normal, especially during ovulation and before period. But if in between also you're having discharge, then it means that you're having exogenesis. Yes, Shilpa, sudden increase in PMS symptoms and lot of mood swings. There's a sudden depression. So that also indicates estrogen imbalance, right? So if you are already having these things, then please don't consume soy products. And those women who are in their perimenopausal or postmenopausal phase, please gladly consume soy products, because it is going to help you to elevate your estrogen levels, and it will reduce the dryness of the vagina, it will reduce your fatigue, it will improve a lot of your symptoms. So please do that. Shreya, you asked me about AMH, which is anti-Mullerian hormone. It's a little, long to discuss it. But in short, I'm going to say that AMH is the hormone which indicates what is your egg reserve. Okay, because it is produced by immature follicles. I have a live session which I did on Instagram. So if you go to my IGTV, my channel, my Instagram, yeah. So if you go to my IGTV, sorry guys. So if you go to my IGTV, I've done a session on infertility. So please check that session. It's really good. It's really informative. I have talked a lot about AMH in that session. So that will also give you an idea. And if you want, I can do a separate session on infertility also, because that is a huge topic in itself. Shrishti, you asked me, are there any side effects of not ovulating? Yes, there are side effects of not ovulating. So what happens is that if you don't ovulate for many months together, as the egg which is supposed to go out, which has matured and which is supposed to be released, will again stay back in the ovaries, and that will cause a cyst. So that is called as an ovarian cyst. So if you do an ultrasound, you will find multiple ovarian cysts if you have not ovulated for many months together. That is one problem. Second thing is your estrogen will be always in a high, because the reason estrogen dips is you ovulate and the remaining follicle produces progesterone, so your estrogen goes down. So under the effect of constant high estrogen, it will increase your uterine wall thickness, which is also not good, and then you will end up bleeding a lot whenever you get the anovulatory period. That's one second problem. And it can also lead to other endometrial issues like adenomyosis. It can lead to even uterine cancer eventually. I mean, I don't want to scare you or anything, but in a long term, it is not good to be in a complete estrogen excess state all the time. It has to be a hormonal cycle. So it is not natural and it is not healthy to continuously not ovulate for months together. 1-2 months a year you're not ovulating, that is okay. But if you're continuously not ovulating for many months, it's not right. You need to get it fixed and you need to get it checked. Yeah, once or twice a year cycle changes are okay, Aarti, completely fine. But as I said, the cycle is not important, the ovulation is important. So you need to check. So please go and read about FAM, which is Fertility Awareness Method. If you want me to do a session on it, I'll be more than happy to do it. But it will take a little time, and there is a presentation, so we cannot do it maybe on FB Live. So maybe on Zoom we can do it eventually. If discharge is not smelly and not itching, then also check with the gynae. Yes. See, now this is my understanding of hormonal imbalance. A gynec may or may not pay attention, but a discharge which is not smelly, not itching, but still is a discharge which is there continuously, it means that you have an estrogen excess. So that is something that you need to get looked at. Homeopathy is a wonderful option for correcting hormonal balances. I see a lot of PCOS cases, I see endometriosis, I've seen adenomyosis, and the response has been really good. I'm not saying 100% response, obviously, 70-80% respond very well. 20-30%, we have to use integrated approach. I have to give some supplements, I have to do diet, all those things also. But overall, homeopathy gives a very good response, especially with period related issues. So please do try that out. How to avoid hair fall caused by hormonal imbalance? Though my cycle is proper, but I'm having, yeah. So this is the thing, Ruchi. Your cycle is proper, but as I said, that doesn't mean you're ovulating every month. So, and in PCOD there is excess testosterone, which is what you must be having because of the hair fall. Now that is causing your hair fall. So once your hormones are balanced, automatically your hair fall will go down. Now please do not go and take testosterone reducing medications, because while they will temporarily fix your hair fall problem, they are not addressing the hormone issue in the root. So while your hormonal imbalance will still be there, your hair fall will be better. So the better thing is to go for a long-term solution, fix your hormonal issues, reduce your testosterone level, see what is the reason for your high testosterone. So I don't know you personally, so it could be excess weight gain, it could be diet, it could be insulin resistance, it could be many things why you're having this. So fix that cause, I would say. That is much better. Does excess of estrogen cause stomach bloating? I would say stomach bloating is a sign of food intolerance. There's something you're eating which is not suiting you, and my bet is going to be on dairy and gluten, because in my experience I have seen that gluten and dairy are something that people are very frequently allergic to and they don't even realize it. I even send them for an allergy test so that they are confirmed that it's actually a thing, and most of them come back positive also for the allergy test. So then they believe, they're like, yeah, you told me, you're right, that is what happens. So I would say check what you're eating. Maybe something is off in your diet and that needs to be fixed. How can you consult me? Oh, Kasturi, so I am based in Pune, but because of this COVID, I am doing all my consultations online. So you can message me either privately or you can message me on Instagram, and I can share my number and you guys can contact me. Absolutely no problem. I'll be happy to consult. Does endometriosis a result of hormonal imbalance? Hema, so endometriosis is a little more complicated than simple hormonal imbalance. The reason being that the endometrial tissue is found in different sites in the body. So it can be either near the ovary, it can be somewhere in the uterus, it can be somewhere even very far away from the uterus, say like a hand, because I had a patient who had an endometrial tissue on the hand. So the and the reason why this happens is also not known, like why the seeding take place or why the endometrial tissue ends up going there. It's a very it's a mystery, it's a medical mystery. But with homeopathy, I've got some good results with endometriosis. The pain has subsided, the cycles have regulated much better, the ovulation is much better. So this is what I can offer with respect to endometriosis. So hormonal imbalance might also be there, but might not be there also. The problem is the endometrial tissue going somewhere else and lodging over there. That is the problem with endometriosis. Purvi saying my periods are regular, but I've recently started getting pigmentation on the forehead and here. Okay, I'm 44. Please suggest. Okay, Purvi, so you need to figure out why you're getting the pigmentation. One of the reason is hormonal. So if you're saying you're 44, I'm not sure how your cycles are. Are you heading menopause? You feel that is one more thing. See that, like if you're heading for menopause or not, and it depends on that. I can maybe give you a better idea of what is going on. Because hyperpigmentation is usually hormonal. Another reason for hyperpigmentation in forehead and here is using hair dye. Yes, I have seen this in some women who are using hair dye. They get pigmentation over here and here. So if you're using a hair dye, maybe you're not maybe it's the brand that is not suiting, so please check that also. Another, maybe homeopathy would be something that you could try. Please do not go for skin treatments, because again skin treatments are very suppressive and they only fix the symptom, they don't treat the cause. So first figure out why you're having the hyperpigmentation before you get it fixed. Yeah, Hima, I hope that answers your question. I think I missed something. Symptoms of menopause. Okay. Ankita, have I left out anything? I've tried to cover all the questions so far. So, I think we are almost at the end of our time. Yeah, 10 more minutes. What can be the reason for smell in urine? Is it because of discharge or something else? Shweta, it could be because of discharge, it could be because of fungal growth or candida infection. So please get it checked. Another reason for smell in urine is what you're eating. So urine is one of your body's ways to detox. Purvi is saying, yeah, so please do check what you're eating, because there's something you're eating that's not suiting you. Maybe that is why your urine is smelling. And also when it happened, is it a new thing, is it something that you've already had? Let me know that. Purvi, yes, I use hair dye and have thyroid cystitis. Purvi, stop using hair dye. Stop using hair dye. It is really bad. Lot of issues with hair dye. Even though they say it's ammonia free, it is this free, that free. None of the hair dyes are good. I have even seen women having issues with henna. So they don't want to use dye, so they use indigo and henna mix to get that color. But that also causes a lot of problem. So just accept yourself the way you are. I'm sure you look very pretty whether you use a hair dye or not. And please don't play around with your hormones like this. It's really bad for you. And why don't you do this test, Purvi? Just go hair dye free for a few months and see if your hyperpigmentation is coming down. And if it's coming down, do let me know. That will be good. Is taking letrozole for conceiving a good option as it leads to ovulation? Yeah, Ruchi, there are a few treatments that help you ovulate. I usually suggest that as a last option. Like, okay, if nothing has worked, you're kind of reaching a point where you don't want to wait anymore, then definitely taking clomiphene citrate or letrozole or HCG injection. So depending on whatever the doctor is suggesting you, it's completely fine for a couple of cycles to help you conceive. But as a homeopath and holistic doctor, if somebody comes to me, then my first attempt is to naturally make them ovulate. Like, I try to do that. In some cases it doesn't happen. Like even in IVF, the success rates are quite less. So it's a difficult question, Ruchi, and I would say that it depends on a lot about your history and what you're trying to achieve. But if you are taking that and that's helping you, then great. Nothing like it. Thick endometrial lining, Monica. Yeah, Monica. Sorry, I forgot your question. So now, what thickens the endometrial lining is estrogen. So during the first half of the menstrual cycle, so from day 1 of your period till day 15, estrogen is slowly increasing. And under the effect of increasing estrogen, the endometrial lining starts getting thicker. Now, after you ovulate, naturally your estrogen level has to come down. But if you don't ovulate or there is a hormonal imbalance that you're having, your estrogen levels remains high. So your endometrial lining keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And then when you do get your period, it will be extremely painful and it will have lot of blood flow and lot of clots. So this is an indication that you have a thick endometrial lining. Another symptom of a thick endometrial lining is spotting between periods, or really long periods like 7 days, 10 days periods, and periods that are coming very very frequently, like every 20 days, every 21 days. These are some signs that your endometrial lining is actually thick, and it is not really good to continue like this, because in allopathic medicine or in conventional medicine there is nothing much you can offer for endometrial thickness. The best option they give is do a hysterectomy done, because there's they really can't do much to reduce your estrogen binding. Even OC pills, even progesterone pills, all that also doesn't really work in the long run, you know. So I would suggest, again, holistically view it, see why it is happening, try to balance your hormones, and homeopathy would definitely help for it. So that's something that you can do. Ritu, yeah, I do address skin issues, Ritu. So, as a homeopath, I see all types of cases, but you know, it's just a chance that I end up seeing a lot of hormonal issues nowadays because it is so rampant. Like, 1 in every 3 women have PCOS or symptoms of hormonal imbalance. So, I just end up seeing more of hormonal issues, but I do see all other issues as well, yeah. Ritu is saying she used henna and still got pigmentation. Yeah, see Ritu, this is what I'm saying. So none of the hair dyes are actually 100% safe. The best way is to, you know, accept yourself. Even I have grey hair. Since I was 21, I have grey hair and I have never colored my hair because I'm like, it's okay. You know, I don't think it looks really bad on me and I have accepted myself the way I am, you know. So I have just left it. I'm like, nay, I'm not going to do it. What should we? Yeah, this is what I said, Neeta. There's no quick solution for this, unfortunately. And today we are living a lifestyle where, you know, having grays early is pretty common. If you don't have an option, you still have to dye your hair, then you can take something simultaneously to detox, like doing lymphatic massage. Yeah, sorry. So do all those things to address gray hair, and rather than if you have to do dyes and henna or whatever, so make sure that you are otherwise keeping healthy so that the side effects are minimal. That's all I would say. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, Kasturi, and I'm so sorry about the network issues. Yeah, I mean, this is really frustrating for me also. Srishti, for ovulation, I think we'll have to do a separate session, and it has to be on a Zoom webinar because I have a presentation that I need to show, so I can't do it on a live. So let's see, we can plan on this. Since I am in the group, you guys are in the group, we can definitely plan something in the future, right? From what age menopause starts normally? It's a huge variation, Bhumika. As I said, it depends on your egg reserve, how many kids you've had, what is your genetic makeup, have you had IVF. So all these things matter. But I would say maybe somewhere between 45 to 55 is a decent range for, you know, starting menopause. My 17-month-old daughter got one gray stand. Oh, Shrishti, my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. But as I told you, there are so many issues nowadays, you know, with water, with chemicals. You really don't know what's going on, yeah. I hope it doesn't spread and I hope it doesn't, you know, get worse. You know, it just stops at one strand. Yeah, but if it, you know, does get worse, do let me know. At least, you know, let's try to figure out why it is happening. What's your Insta ID? It's called as the Purple Coat Clinic. Yeah. Alright, ladies, thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you guys. You were so interactive. I totally loved it. And thank you, Ankita and Reema, for arranging this. It was really lovely, talking to all of you and in a subject that I really love. So I hope to interact with you guys more on the group, or you can PM me also, no issues. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So great. Thank you, ladies. Okay, Bhumika. So I think you can expect menopause, as I said, somewhere between 45 to 55. Yeah, you can do that. Not very early. Yes. Okay. Okay, ladies. Thank you so much. So I'm signing off now, and hopefully, like, we'll keep interacting in the group. Yeah. Bye. Good evening. I mean, have a nice evening. Bye.